Close looking is one of the more specialized techniques that we have. It's really used for slowing down the class and applying a specific way of thinking or a skill to a set situation. Really, the benefit of close looking is providing structure and purpose for the application of a skill. Classic example: you say have a student with a series of questions to look through an article that they have found and to evaluate that article based off of some criteria that you've set forth that you think works for their class. Close looking, or close reading as it's also called, is really about deconstructing and really getting into the fine details of things, and so that's when I would suggest using it. As I said before, close looking is most useful when you need to slow down and really deconstruct things. It's most commonly used for things like relating to evaluation. So when you have questions like, how do I know if this article is authoritative in this particular context, or in what context would this article have authority? That would be really great. Or how does this article fit within a larger scholarly conversation? That's another question that close looking can help with. You can also do things like, how was this article created, or what context was this created for? What are the limitations of this particular article? Really anything where you're breaking things down and really deconstructing things. It works really well with Think, Pair, Share. Oftentimes I'm pairing it with another technique like Think, Pair, Share to give them the activity. But I'm most often using it with evaluating sources or evaluating information. If that is if that's part of the assignment that I'm working with, that's when I think close looking is going to work really well. I will also almost always use it at the end of class. You can start it as like a homework assignment that they get beforehand if you have a relationship with the instructor. But at the end of class, it's the last 20 minutes, do this thing, and then we're going to talk about that. That's a classic close looking example. How do we make close looking work? Close looking is really about purpose and structure. You want to give them a specific purpose to look for. Those can come in a activity. I want you to be able to determine whether this article fits the criteria. Would you want to use this article? Do you believe this article? Do you trust this article? Giving them a question that they have to answer, and that the structure, the questions that you give them, help them get to that place. So, what is an example of this? Say we have this article here, and we want to ask the question of, how does this article fit within the conversation, and should I include it within my paper to argue a particular point? I'm going to give them some structured questions to say, okay, who is this article by? Why would they write this article? And what about this article has you trust what it says? Or what about this article has you not trust what it says? And you ultimately make a final determination to say, on a scale of 1 to 10, I trust this article about an 8. Or this is the situation in which I would trust this article. This is the situation in which I would not trust this article. Those types of structured questions and that purpose, that I can't stress that enough. Oftentimes I see people use close looking and they just give people the structure. Just answer these questions without thinking about the larger picture. What are these questions supposed to help us be able to do at the very end? Really tie it back in. So if they're having to do an annotated bibliography for their assignment, and you're planning on looking on close looking, the goal is, should I include this within my paper? Should I include this as an article that I would want to use later on? That's our ultimate goal for that, and that these questions that I'm going to have them answer really get to that purpose. So purpose and structure. Structure is the questions that you're going to have, or the activities, or the way that they're going to progress through this, the how they're going to do this. The purpose is the why. Do not forget the why. The why is so important when it comes to close looking, because it's so easy to get lost in what you're actually doing that you forget what the whole point of this whole thing was, and you'll lose them halfway through. They won't understand why they're doing it. So close looking, purpose, structure. So you might recognize this example from Think, Pair, Share. If you're watching this one first, it's also in Think, Pair, Share. You'll see how we can use it as an active learning activity. But really, we're going to focus in on the structure and the purpose for this particular assignment. I'm going to assign them out. I'm going to give them 10 to 15 minutes, find an article, and then I want you to analyze it. I want you to identify its claim. I want you to identify its methodology, and I want you to identify its implication for your particular research. How does this change your research? How does this make a contribution to the scholarly conversation? one, being able to do all these three things, like we said in the think, pair, share, is a really good test for them. They'll understand if they can do their annotated bibliography, if they can do this. But the ultimate purpose is we're trying to evaluate whether this is useful for their project. Would I include this or would I not include this? In what ways is it useful? That might be another question we would answer. But that's our purpose. That's our ultimate drive. These structures help us to get to that place. Now, how do they do that? What I would explain then is making a connection between the claim and methodology. I would say, is the claim supported by the methodology? Do they do a good job in this article supporting what their claim is? Does their claim go beyond what their methodology says it's supposed to? Or does it fit really well? Or is it unrelated? Are they making too big of a claim by what they've actually supported here? That's one way where I would decide if they are making some unsupported claims, I'm not going to use it because it doesn't carry authority for my particular project. If it seems sound, that's the first consideration I'm making, that I think I can trust what the results are from this because I see how they're connected in that way. Lastly is implication. If the implication is very low for me, if it doesn't really change my mind about anything or doesn't add something brand new, I might think about not using it because I knew all this information before, or it really confirms something that I already knew, or it's not really related or relevant to what I'm talking about. Its implication is very poor. I might not include it within my project then. But if these all line up, that a claim is supported by its methodology and the methodology seems strong, and it has really changed the way I think about something and adds something new or confirms a really important point that I'd like to make in my paper, totally useful for my project. And you can see here the big part is how we align the purpose with the structure. Both of those things are necessary. They first have to be able to do this and then think critically about them, close reading, finding the examples that really support each one of these things, and then finding the place where it's useful in their project. They can only do this by really considering and reading through the article and considering it through your particular structure. Just saying read the article very closely does not give them enough information. They don't know what they're looking for. Give them the things to look for, then have them think about those things that they've already found around the idea of what their purpose would be for that particular project. You want to figure out if it's useful or not, you can generate buy-in. They know that they want to figure that out. That purpose makes sense to them, and this is a way by which they can achieve it. Close looking or close reading is all about looking for particular things and getting what you're trying to get out of it. But it is about slowing it down, and this is the example that I would use. And then oftentimes when I said with the think, pair, share, I then go back and have them share with a partner or share with someone else what they found, because that gives them the ability to reflect on this kind of stuff and sort of have a conversation about these things. All right,